Hello everybody and welcome back to How to Make a Basic Game in Blender. This is part 4. Today we're going to be adding a menu and adding sounds to our coins. We're going to start with the coin sound. So we want to add a sound whenever the player collects a coin. So we already know when the player is collecting a coin because on our player object we sense a collision with the coins. So what we're going to do is just simply hook a sound into this. So to do that, we're just going to add an actuator, and this is going to be a sound actuator because we want to play a sound. We can wire this into the exact same controller as that collision sensor, and now we're going to hit open here, and this is going to point to the sound file that we want to use. You can download these sounds in the description. So for the coin collection, we're going to use the ding.mp3. And then we're going to switch this from play stop mode to play end mode. Play stop just plays the sound as long as this sensor is activated. Play end plays the entire sound file every time that it's activated. So if we go back to our first layer, we can play the game. And now whenever we collect the coins, we get this nice kind of ding noise. Alright, so now we want to add one more sound. This sound is going to be for whenever we collect the last coin. And this is going to be a slightly longer sound. It's going to be a bit more joyful, I guess. So we're going to add this one on our player spawner because this is where we're switching to the next level. So we're going to go ahead and add a sound actuator here and go ahead and open the file. We're going to open chime.mp3 this time. And then instead of play stop, we're going to do play end, and we can just minimize that now. Now we're going to hook this into the same sensor that's triggering the scene actuator. So then if we play the game, we go around, collect the coins, we get a ding, and you'll notice it still switches to the other scene right away without even playing that chime sound. And that's because it's switching to this new scene before it even gets a chance to play that sound. So we're going to dewire the scene actuator. You can do that just by reconnecting the dots like that. Go ahead and move it down. You can do that by pressing this little down arrow. So now the scene actuator is on the bottom. And we want this scene actuator to activate whenever this sound actuator has finished. So to do that, we're going to add a actuator sensor. In the actuator field, we're going to select the sound actuator because that's the name of the actuator over here. And then for the controller, we're going to add a NAND controller. So now with this actuator sensor and this NAND controller, this will trigger whenever this actuator has finished doing its thing. Okay, so if we try the game out, now we get to go through, collect all the coins, and then we collect the last one. We get this nice chime noise, and then once that finishes, we're on to the next level. Okay, so now we're going to add a menu. The menu is where we're going to add any high scores that we want to, maybe a level selector, and other stuff like that. To do that, we're going to click on this plus up by the scenes. We're going to add a new scene, and we're back in our blank scene. And again, we got to remember to switch from Blender Render to Blender Game. And we're also going to go to the Render tab and scroll down and find GLSL. Okay, so we're going to make our menu just a little bit interesting. We're actually going to have a camera kind of orbiting around our cube. So first off, we're going to go ahead and hit Shift A. We're going to add a plane, and we're just going to scale this a ways up. And you can see it's totally black right now. That's because we need to add a lamp. So we're going to hit Shift A, add a lamp. We're going to make this a sun lamp. And we're going to kind of copy the lighting setup we have in the actual game. So let's go ahead and rotate this sun lamp. So we're going to rotate it 45 degrees on the y-axis and then 45 on the z-axis. So hit RY 45 and then RZ 45. So you can see that's now got this sun lamp pointed at an angle. We're then going to go to the lighting tab down here, and you can see we have our various materials from the other lamps, so we're going to go ahead and choose lamp. That's the same as the one in our level 1 scene. Let's go ahead and move the cursor to the sun lamp, so hit Shift S, cursor to selected, then hit Shift A, add lamp Hemi, and we're going to use the same as the first one, so just regular old Hemi. So now we're going to select the plane, hit Shift S, cursor to selected, and now we're going to add in our player cube, so Shift A, add a mesh, and it's a cube. We can go ahead and scale this guy down a bit and just make sure he's up above the plane. And then in the materials tab, we're just going to select our player material. Okay, so now we're going to want to have the camera sort of orbit around our character. So first off, we need to add a camera, so we're going to hit Shift A, add a camera. We're then going to hit Alt R to clear its rotation. Drag it on up on the Z axis, and maybe back on the Y axis a little bit. We're then going to hit RX 45. Yeah, let's go a little farther. Let's try another 30. Let's go back a little bit. So RX -10. So that's a total of 65 degrees. So we can switch the camera view by hitting 0 on the number pad. Now we can hit the G key to kind of fine-tune its position. I think that right there is probably good. Once we have that, we're going to hit Shift A, and we're going to add a empty. I'm going to use the arrows one this time. So you can now see we have these two little symbols sticking out the side of the cube. That's where our empty is. So we're going to select our camera, shift select the empty, and then hit Control P, set parent to object. So now if we move the empty around, our camera moves along with it. Okay, so now we're going to add a always sensor to our empty, an and controller, and then a motion actuator. And we can set this to global rotation, and then we're just going to add a little bit to the Z rotation axis. So if we play the game, we see the camera is slowly spinning around our cube. I think I want to go a little faster than that, so we'll try something like 0.5 degrees. And I think that's a lot closer to what I wanted. So now we're going to add the actual menu items. And we're going to do that the same way we added our overlay scene. We're going to create an overlay scene for our main menu. So first thing is we should probably rename this scene to something more meaningful. So let's do menu. Then we're going to add a new scene. We're going to make it new. And let's go ahead and name this one right away. Let's call it menu overlay. So again, we added a new scene. We need to switch from Blender Render to Blender Game. Go to the Render tab and check GLSL. So, first thing we need to do is we need to add a camera. Hit Alt R to clear the rotation. Drag it on up on the Z axis. Hit Shift A, add a Hemi lamp, and we are good to go. So now we're going to create a couple of buttons that we can use to press as the player. So we're going to have a play button and an exit button, and maybe we'll add a few more later. So to add each of these buttons, we're going to hit Shift A, we're going to add a plane, and we can just kind of scale this to the size that we want the button to be. I'm going to say that probably looks good there. Keep it kind of clean and tidy. What I'm going to do is every time the mouse goes over this object, I want it to kind of animate just a little bit. I want it to become just a little bit larger so that we know that our mouse is over it. So to do that, I'm going to have it at the size that I want whenever it's small. Make sure the keyframe is set to 1. You can see that right here. I'm then going to hit I and insert a keyframe of scaling. I'm then going to use the right arrow key to change it to keyframe number 2. And I'm then going to scale up the object a little bit. We'll try for that much. Hit I again, and again we'll do scaling. So now if I tap the arrow keys left and right, you can see that on keyframe 2 it's a little larger, keyframe 1 it's smaller. So let's go ahead and add some logic to this button. So first off, we're going to add a mouse sensor. It's going to be the mouse over sensor. We're then going to have a AND controller and a NAND controller. We can wire those two up to the same sensor. And finally, we're going to add a action actuator. So this actuator is going to play an animation every time that it's activated. So we can wire that one into the first controller. And if we click on this field here, this is the action that it's going to play. We're going to play plain .002 action, which is the name of this button. Now this is whenever the mouse is over the object, so we want to start it at keyframe 1 and end it at keyframe 2. So this will play the animation from keyframe 1 and stop at keyframe 2, so it'll get a little bit bigger. So then we want to add another action actuator and wire that up to the second controller, and we'll play the same action, but now we're going to play it with a start frame of 2 and an end frame of 1. Alright, so we could try the game, and you'll see, if I can find where the mouse is, you can see that it's working, but we can't see the mouse to use it. So what we're going to do is on the Render tab, we're going to scroll down until we see this display panel, and we're going to make sure to check mark mouse cursor. So now if we play the game, you can see now we see the mouse cursor in the game, and we can mouse over that plane, and it gets just a little bit bigger. Why don't we go ahead and add a sound to that as well? So we're going to add an actuator. We're going to add a sound actuator. Wire that into the first controller. Go ahead and open the sound, and I have this tap.mp3. You can download that in the description. And we're going to do a play end. So now we play the game, mouse over it, and we get this nice kind of clicking sound. Lets us know that we're over that button. Okay, and just for neatness, I'm going to move the sound actuator up, just so the wires aren't crossing. And one final thing that we want to do is we want to add another AND controller. And we're going to add a mouse sensor, and this is going to be left button. So now we're going to wire both of those sensors into this controller. So this controller will send out a signal to the actuator whenever the mouse is over this object, and whenever we press the left button. So we can go ahead and add an actuator. Let's go ahead and make it a scene actuator. And we'll just wire it in there. And instead of restart, let's go ahead and do set scene. And let's set it to level 1. So if we play the game now, we can mouse over that button. And if we left click, it starts level 1. So the problem is right now that if somebody just starts playing this game and they've never played it before, they're going to have no idea what that button does. So let's go ahead and add a label to it. So we're going to hit Shift S, move cursor to selected. Let's go ahead and orbit around the 3D view. And if we hit Shift A and we can add a text, we can drag it just above that plane there and switch back to the camera view, and we can just move this text to wherever we want it. Let's go ahead and type in what we want it to say. I'm just going to drag this down here for now. So enter edit mode by pressing tab, backspace, and let's go ahead and switch it to play. Okay, so that's great, but white on white doesn't exactly work. I'm going to go ahead and change the color of the button. So with the button selected, we're going to go to the materials tab. We can go ahead and add a new one. Let's give it a name. Let's name it menu button. And I think we'll stick with a sort of orange theme for now. And I'm going to go ahead and make it shadeless. And then with our text selected, you'll notice if we have the text there in the game, whenever we play the game, you'll see it kind of moves and it kind of gets pixelated. That's because Blender is converting this text object into a texture-based text object. And that's fine, but let's go ahead and convert this to a mesh so that it looks exactly like it does in our 3D view. So we're going to hit Alt-C, convert to mesh from curve. So now we play the game and it looks exactly like it did in our 3D preview. Okay, so one final thing we want to do is make it so that this text moves along with the button. So we're going to select the text, shift select the button, hit Control P, set parent to object. So now we can play the game, mouse over that button, and we can see the whole thing gets kind of bigger. We get that nice click noise. But now you'll notice if we move over the word, the button shrinks back down again. That's because the mouse is detecting that it's over the text rather than over the plane, and so it doesn't tell the plane to get bigger. So we're going to select the text, go down to the Physics tab, switch the physics type from static to no collision. Then we can play the game, mouse over the button, and we get the nice clicking noise. So now we're going to want to add another button. We're going to add a quit button. So we're going to do kind of the same thing that we did before. Let's select both of those, hit Shift D, drag that button down. Let's go there. Select the text, hit Shift S, cursor to selected. We can go ahead and delete that text now, so hit X and delete. Shift A, add text. Let's go ahead and scale them on down here. And let's enter edit mode with tab and type new text. Let's call it quit. And then again, we're going to do Alt C, convert to mesh, select the text, shift select the button, Control P, set parent to object. Now if we wanted, we could change the color of the text too, but I think I'll leave it white like this. So now we play the game, and we've got two buttons here. And you'll notice that our quit button is doing the same thing as what the play did, and that's because I forgot to switch it from static to no collision. Now we play the game, and we've got two nice buttons that play a nice kind of clicking noise. I think I'm actually going to drag that button up a little bit. Let's go like that. So one problem is, if we play the game and we hit the quit button, it goes to our first level. So we need to change that. So on the quit button, we're going to go to this scene actuator, and we're going to actually replace it. So instead of a scene actuator, let's go with a game actuator. And we're going to switch this from start game from file to quit game. All right. So if we go back to our menu scene, we can select our camera, add an always sensor, add a and controller, and then add a scene actuator. And then we're going to add a overlay scene, and this scene is going to be our menu overlay. So now we can play the game. We've got our cube kind of orbiting in the background there, and we've got two buttons there. Now notice the mouse isn't showing again, so we need to do the same thing we did earlier. Go to the render tab and scroll down until we find the display panel, and then make sure we check mark mouse cursor. So now we play the game. We have these buttons. We can quit the game, or we can hit the play button to start the first level. Now one thing you may not be able to notice, maybe you do, our main menu scene is actually in the background of our game. We can see this if I scale up our cube on the main menu to where it takes up the whole screen. If we hit play, you'll see in the background there's still the cube rotating. We don't want that. So what we need to do is go to the menu overlay scene, select the play button, and we're going to add another scene actuator. So we're going to wire that up to the same controller that sets our scene to level 1, and we're going to switch it from restart to remove scene. And we're going to remove the scene menu. So if we go back to our menu, we can hit play, we can hit the play button, and we're in the first level, and the main menu isn't in the background anymore. Okay, so one final thing I want to do in this video is let's make it so that whenever we finish our second level, which is currently our last level, rather than going back to the first level, why don't we take it to a finished game screen? So to do that, we're going to add a new scene. We can go ahead and click new, and let's give it a name. How about finished? And again, we're going to need to switch from Blender Render to Blender Game. In the Render tab, scroll down until we find GLSL. Hit Shift A, add a camera. Hit Alt R to clear its rotation. Drag it up on the Z-axis. We're then going to hit Shift A, add a hemi lamp. And finally, let's go ahead and switch the camera view. Hit Shift A, we can add some text. And we can have it say something cheerful like congratulations. Congratulations, you won. We can change some more of the ways this text looks by going to the text button here. And I'm going to scroll down to where I can find the alignment, and I'm going to do center. So I can drag this one over here to kind of the center of the screen. So there we can see our text, congratulations, you won. Let's go ahead and convert that to a mesh. So Alt-C, convert to mesh. Okay, so we play the game. It says, congratulations, you won. So that's great. But what if our player wants to play the game again? Or what if they want to go back to the main menu? Let's go ahead and add in some buttons here. So to do that, we're going to go back to our menu overlay scene, where we have these nice buttons already made up. And we're just going to hit Control-L, link objects to scene, and let's link them to the finished scene. If we then go to the finished scene, we can see we have one of our buttons here. And I'm just going to hit the U key and make single user object. So let me go ahead and move this button down here underneath the text. We'll hit Shift S, cursor to selected. Let's go ahead and orbit around into 3D view. Shift A, add text, drag it up just above that plane. Now we can switch back to the camera view. Scale that text on down. Maybe move it over a little bit. And let's enter edit mode with tab. And let's swap out this text for something a little more meaningful. Let's go ahead and type in play again. And we can scale this to where it fits inside that button. Hit Alt-C. Actually, let's hold off on that for a second. Let's go ahead and select the plane and the text there. Hit Shift-D. We can drag this on over. Let's put that one right about there. And I'm actually going to drag these two on over this way. So now with this first text selected, I'm going to hit Alt-C, convert to mesh, select the text, select the button behind it, hit Control-P, set parent to object. Then I'm going to select the text on the second button, enter edit mode with tab, and let's replace it with, how about main menu. And scale that down a little bit so that it fits in. Hit Alt-C, convert to mesh from curve, and select the text, shift select the button, hit Control-P, set parent to object. So, the only thing left to do is to change these actuators so that they take us to the right place. So, for play again, we're going to want to get rid of this remove scene actuator. That's the second scene actuator there. And our first scene actuator is going to set the scene to level 1. So that one's all ready to go. The main menu button, instead of removing the scene, we're going to get rid of that. And instead of setting the scene to level 1, we're going to switch that to setting the scene to menu. All right. So we can go back to our menu. We can play the game. We get the buttons there with the nice clicks. We can play the game. We can go through level 1. Get through level 2. And you'll notice level 2 didn't chime, and it didn't take us to the finished screen. So now in level 2, you'll notice it doesn't have the same logic as the first level cube. So we're going to go ahead and add a sound actuator to this cube. We're going to hit the drop down menu there, and we're going to select chime.mp3, have it play end, wire that into the final controller, dewire that scene actuator. We can move that scene actuator down, add a actuator sensor, select the sound actuator, add a NAND controller, wire that in, so that we'll have that sound play at the end of the second level. And then the scene actuator, right now it's setting it to level 1. Instead of that, we want to set it to finished. So now we go back to our menu, play the game, hit play. We can go through the first level. Go through the second level. And then we're presented with the congratulations you won screen. We could add a background in here, but we can see our score there, 130. We have the 2 buttons, and you'll notice they're doing the kind of clicky glitch again. So again, remember we need to go to the finished level, select the text on the button, go to the physics tab, instead of static, do no collision. Same with the other one. And now if we try out this scene, they no longer do that. Okay, so one other problem that we still have is if we finish the second level, we go to the finished screen, those buttons are working now, but if we go back to the main menu, you'll notice the score is still there. And if we go to play, now it's still just adding more to that score. So, on the finished game tab, we want to get rid of that score whenever we click one of these buttons. So we're going to go ahead and add an actuator to the button. We're going to do a scene, and instead of restart, we're going to do remove scene, and we're going to select the overlay scene. And then we're going to add that to both of these buttons. So, scene actuator, wire that into that last and instead of restart scene, we're going to do remove scene, and we're going to select the overlay scene. Okay, so that's got us at a pretty good stopping point for now. So we can play the game, we can play around, we can go through the level. We get nice sounds for whenever we collect a coin and whenever we finish the level. And then whenever we finish the game, we get this nice congratulations you won screen. It displays the score. We can hit play again to go back to the first level, and the score now resets so we can play it again. Alright, so that's going to be it for today. Next video, we're going to add a third level. This third level is going to have a button that triggers a ramp. Maybe we'll have some obstacles. And then later, maybe in another video, we're going to add in some enemies that may, I don't know, try to stop you from collecting all of the coins. We can also change the scoring just a little bit so that it also changes based on time, maybe, so that the faster you do it, the higher the score you get. But that's going to be a separate video some other time. So I hope this video is helping you guys learn. I want to thank you guys very much for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.